Auston Matthews slighted again? And will Cowan get a hard look at training camp? Both of these questions and more will be tackled on today's edition of the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.
You're Locked On Maple Leafs, your daily podcast on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome into the Locked On Leafs podcast, a daily Maple Leaf-centric podcast hosted by myself, Mike DiStefano, and my co-host, Dave Morassutti. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season is around the corner. Visit the FanDuel app today to start planning your futures bets. Now, the hockey season also around the corner. We're just a few weeks away now from training camps, from everybody returning, getting back into the building. You already see, a few players who have made their way back into Toronto. Matthews was around last weekend. Chris Tanev, I know he's somewhat local, but he was back in town for that charity event last weekend. I'm sure we'll see a whole bunch more people end up flocking back down to Toronto with camp getting underway fairly soon. Dave, I don't know if you saw the latest slander on Auston Matthews. We kind of talked about this a little bit last week, how we thought that, the public was a little bit, the fan base even was a little bit worried about, Matthews declining without Mitch Marner. And, we both thought that it was a little premature and is pretty much going to end up being a prove-it year that he can get it done without a premier superstar winger. But I didn't realize that there was as many industry people who had the same sentiment. The NHL Network puts out their rankings each and every week or every year, and they have him as the seventh best center, not seventh best player, seventh best center in the NHL. What the heck is up with that?
That's ridiculous. It's like there's no other way to say it. It's absolutely ridiculous to think that a guy who was a Art Ross, he won the Pearson Award, the one that
it used to be the Ted Lindsay,
right? He's won multiple Rocket Richards, and okay, you can make if even if he didn't get into like the top three, if he's in the top five, I can live with that. For him to be outside of the top five is slander. It's slander, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. It's something I did not expect to see. I mean, I know obviously a lot of people sitting there talking about, Matthews, how much he's going to miss Marner, but to not have him in the top five, I think is quite criminal considering what he's proven over the course of his career. I get it. Injuries have definitely crept up and are a real thing and a real concern. But in terms of pure skill and what he can do, man, there's no doubt that he's a top five player. The rankings from NHL Network were as follows. Connor McDavid, followed by Nathan McKinnon and Leon Draisaitl. I'm okay with that ranking. I'll tell you that. I'm okay with that top three ranking from the NHL Network. And then it goes Sasha Barkov, Sidney Crosby, Jack Eichel, and then Auston Matthews at number 7. And you could, Barkov, I could take it or leave it as Barkov being the better player over Auston Matthews. He's a captain of, the back-to-back Stanley Cup champions, and he's a force. He's a two-way threat. He's a Selke candidate, point-per-game Selke guy, perennial Selke winner, not just a candidate. I can make that argument, or I can understand that argument to have Barkov there, but I'm not so sure Crosby at his age is still considered, the better player over Auston Matthews. And as good as Jack Eichel is, I still don't see Eichel quite being the better player over Auston Matthews. For me, I think that he's probably 4 or 5, and it's kind of criminal for him to be any lower than that, though.
I do. I honestly do, because I even saw, I don't know if you saw that there was a video posted about, who'd you take over who? And Mike Rupp actually said I would take a healthy Jack Hughes over Auston Matthews.
He had Matthews ranked 9th in his, because I saw his ranking. He literally had him ranked 9th. He had not only Jack Hughes ahead of him, but Braden Point ahead of him as well.
Like, here's the thing I'll say to this. He says, I would take a healthy Jack Hughes. The most Jack Hughes has ever played is 78 games once. So you're putting a big if on that one. Now, look, when he did play those 78 games, he was close to 100 points. So it's a pretty good season for him.
Well, what about this, Dave? What about a healthy Auston Matthews? Because you didn't have a healthy Auston Matthews a year ago. So if you're putting asterisks on it for, a player to be healthy, well, a healthy, dominant Auston Matthews is a top 5 player in the world, let alone top 5 center in the world. So if we're going spade to spade and we're talking, guys at their best when they're healthy, give me Auston Matthews over a number of players.
Absolutely. And when he is healthy, he is producing far more superiorly than Jack Hughes. And it's not even offensively. It's the two-way play. If you're telling me which of the two players I'd rather have in all situations, I would pick Auston Matthews over Jack Hughes. Yeah, there's no debate about that. Zero debate.
I completely agree. I don't, again, we talked about it on our last episode. You can go check it out. But, it's going to be a prove-it year for Auston Matthews, not just for the fans, but there's a lot of, former players out there, and Mike Rupp and pundits out there in the media that believe that Matthews is on the downturn, whether it's because, of the injuries piling up or, coupled with the fact that he's going to be losing Mitch Marner, and will he be able to still drive a line and still be as dominant without such a puck dominant winger, a playmaking skilled winger next to him? And look, there is going to be question marks about how much it impacts him, but to a degree where he's ranking 9th on a centers list is absolutely asinine. When this guy was like pretty firmly in the top 3-4 centers for quite some time. If we're talking health, spade to spade, health for health, Matthews is the top 5 center in the world. It's no question to me. Coming in at 7 or let alone 9 from Mike Rupp, disgraceful, absolutely disgraceful.
The best part of all this, they tweeted out, the NHL Network tweeted out, Auston Matthews might be the most important player on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Might? Let's maybe define it as he is the most important player on the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Yeah.
Like, what are we talking about here? Like, I cannot believe that people are pushing him down so much. I know, and I hate to say, as you said before, it's not just the media, it's the fan base too. Why? Oh, why? I can understand if you're frustrated with the injury. I can get that, but it's Auston Matthews, for goodness sake.
I know. It's really quite something, but it's gonna be a prove a year for Auston Matthews. He's gonna have to go out there and shut everyone up and become the dominant force he was a couple of years ago. I don't think he's gonna press up on 70 goals again like he did a couple of years back, but 50, 55, 58 goals this season, that'll shut everyone up, I think. Like, that is that what it takes? Does it take another 50 goal season to shut everybody up? I think that's probably what it will take for them to really be like, you know what, we were wrong. Matthews is good enough to be able to be a star all on his own. I think it's probably 50 plus this year to do that.
Probably has to be, and it's funny because nobody else is putting that onus on a lot of the other centers. Like, you expect it from McKinnon, you expect it from McDavid, you expect it from Draisaitl, but you're telling me you're not expecting that from Eichel. You're definitely not expecting that from Sidney Crosby nowadays.
No.
Who else did we say was put above? I'll even put Jack Hughes.
Braden Point.
Braden Point's a great player, but Braden Point's never scored more than 50. I think did he ever score 50? Actually, I can't even remember.
There's that one year he scored a decent amount, but either way,
he had 150 goals.
It was one season at most. Let me look.
Yeah, he had one season where he had the 51 goals a few years ago when he had 95 points.
Yeah,
the guy had 82 points this past year in 77 games. Auston Matthews probably would have surpassed that if he was healthy. Easily.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think he definitely could have and probably would have if healthy. I still slight on Braden Point. He's still a great player. Don't get me wrong.
Mhm.
Auston Matthews just an amazing player, franchise player, an elite player, if you will. But yeah, slighted again by the NHL Network this time, ranking him 7th. I did see that they put out a new ranking a couple of days ago. Our boy Matthew Knies showed up on there. So let's take a break, come back. We'll talk about where Matthew Knies stands on the top 25 players born in this quarter century list that was released earlier this week. And we'll get to some cosign, no sign next here in the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.
Today's edition of the Locked On Leafs podcast is brought to you by Monarch Money. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. When you don't have the full picture, you end up leaving money on the table. That's where there is Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings you in your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch Money is built for people with busy lives. If you put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization for all your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. You know, I found myself looking to see how many subscriptions do I have, and I actually found a few that I didn't even need to use anymore, and that saved me some good money over at Monarch. And if you're working with a partner, it's easier than ever. You can categorize solo accounts and group accounts to make sure that you're keeping track of everything so you have a clear view of your financial health. So don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNHL.
Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. Mike DiStefano, David Morassutti with you as we are each and every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, up until training camp. So only a few more weeks left of 3-day-a-week shows. They're back to 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. You can find the Locked On Leafs podcast wherever you get a podcast and also up on YouTube. So just talk about Auston Matthews being slighted at number 7 in the NHL Network's latest center rankings. Did you happen to see where Matthew Knies ended up on their top players under or born in this quarter century? So players born in the year 2000 and up, which I guess what are the Gen Z's? Yeah, Gen Z's, I guess, is what that would be. I always get confused of what the heck these generation gaps are. But anyways, yeah, they ended up naming Matthew Knies. He was the 25th best player born in the year 2000 or later. Obviously, he has a 2002 birth date, but yeah, so Matthew Knies makes the quarter century ranking for top 25 players born in the quarter century, coming in number 25, Dave.
Yeah, for Matthew Knies, like I wouldn't expect him to gain. Like it's funny how much he's ascended on these lists and how much attention he is getting. I think part of it too is just the type of player he is, how he's built, right? And we had that conversation the other day about how his skating was something that I think was a Pronman, Corey Pronman, that said that his skating wasn't still at a high level. And I'm just like, did you not watch how this guy performed in the playoffs when he just blew past? There was that one goal he scored against the Senators where he absolutely blew past the defender and just skated all alone and scored that one. I think it was a shorthanded goal too, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think you're right.
Like, I get it. There are really good skaters in the NHL. I don't think I put Matthew Knies in the top tier in terms of skaters. But like, I feel like he's one of those players that has just found one way to improve, each and every year. I remember when I first saw the guy make his debut when I was in Tampa watching him play, and I was already impressed with him in that game. Just that first game he ever played late in the year when everybody else is at their, he's coming right into the NHL. So He's a player that, you know, they obviously, when they made that investment, they knew that they had something, you know, special in that in Knies, and it's another reason why I think people are not giving the Leafs the respect they deserve, because they have a player like us with Matthew Knies. You putting him on a line with Auston Matthews playing probably a more prominent role this year, it's only going to get better, and it's only going to help the Leafs, you know, improve, right? Finding those internal improvements. He's one of those players I don't think there are people are finally giving him his due. I think some people aren't giving it to the degree that other players usually get.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that Matthew Knies is a guy who I think has an opportunity to also prove to a lot of people that he's more than just a passenger alongside Marner and Matthews last year. He made a lot of things happen, and I think this will be a prove year for him as well, that he can be a top line player in the NHL and be a point per game ish player and touch up on 40-ish goals and be a power forward force that this team has lacked for a very, very long time. I'm obviously big in the hockey card market, and I was surprised. I saw a stat the other day that over the course of the summer, Matthew Knies has the 5th most sold cards over the course of the summer. Yeah, that's like of all time, like of every player. That's including like Gretzky's and Crosby's and McDavid's. Yeah, so over the summer,
damn,
yeah, the 5th most amount of cards sold for any given player has been Matthew Knies. So he's definitely a popular player, that's for sure. Definitely in Toronto.
I would love to get a Matthew Knies card, that's for sure. I missed the chance to go and meet. He was doing that event with Tylenol.
Yeah,
and my sister, who's not even the biggest hockey fan in this house, wanted to go and see Matthew Knies.
Yeah.
But
he's a fan favorite now.
Yeah.
Right. Definitely a fan favorite now. So I think Knies is gonna, I think he's gonna be a guy where in a couple of years he'll get that ranking and he'll surpass some people. There's some really good players on this list. Granted, like I don't know if 25 is necessarily a slight. I do think that Knies has more to prove, but you're looking at this list and it's like Jack Eichel, Tim Stützle, Celebrini, Wyatt Johnston, like Fantilli, Boldy, Raymond, Caulfield, Cooley, Lane Hudson, Brock Faber, Quentin Byfield. Like, there's some good players on this list. I would argue that Matthew Knies is better than Kirill Marchenko, who was ranked at number 24. So I would have had Knies bumped up ahead of Marchenko. But still being in the top 25 players born in the last 25 years in the NHL, I think is still quite high and some good praise for Matthew Knies. Rasmus Dahlin was ranked number 1 on this list, though. Dave, does that surprise you?
A little bit. Like, he is a good player, but like, there's a reason why the Sabres are where they are. Like, as good of a player as Dahlin is, he hasn't helped the Sabres take that step.
Wow.
Right?
I don't think it's like Dahlin's fault. I think he's done almost everything he could possibly do.
Yeah, but I think to a degree that there needs to be more accountability within that team. Now, I don't think it's all him, but like, when you see how that organization has gone, like you've got him, you got Owen Power, like they've got players. I do think that Dahlin it took a little bit of time for him, but I think he doesn't. Yeah, he maybe doesn't get the appreciation because of where he plays, the team he plays for. But I don't know. I think I would put, like, who would you put anybody above him?
Like, I'm looking at the list now. So it goes Dahlin at 1, Jack Hughes at 2, Tim Stützle, Jake Sanderson, Macklin, Celebrini. That's kind of your top 5 there. Bedard came in at
be in the
8.
top 5 of that.
Bedard comes in at 8, actually. Ooh. On this list, which is very interesting. But like to pull a line from Mike Rupp, a healthy Jack Hughes, I would take at number 1, I suppose. But Rasmus Dahlin, man, like he's a solid player, and I don't think he gets enough love being in Buffalo because the team is such a tire fire, an absolute dumpster fire. But he's rock solid, man. Like you look at his underlying numbers, like it's not his fault that the rest of the team stinks and that there's no motivation from anyone else in that organization, it seems like, to win games. So it's hard to look at the Sabres and think that they have one of the best defensemen in the league, but they really do. Like, Dahlin is that guy. He is unbelievable. Just doesn't get to showcase it a lot being in Buffalo, but I don't hate him being ranked at number one here. I'll say that.
No, I think
Hughes
it's
is the flashier player, I guess I could say. But Dahlin, just steady Eddie. You know what you're getting from him. He's a very consistent player and very consistently great at that.
No, I think like if you're giving me that list of players, he's probably the one I would take out of. Like, if you're asking me, like, you got these guys available to draft first overall, I'd probably be taking Dahlin.
Yeah.
Especially with the way defensemen are hard to get, like of his caliber, probably go with him.
All right, so we're gonna take a quick break. We'll come back. We'll get to some cosign, no sign, couple Leaf related ones, and one league related that I think is very interesting. Something has not happened yet this summer, and I think there's some concern to be had around the NHL. So we'll get to that next here on the Locked On Leafs podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is almost here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. It keeps every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. It's quick, it's easy, the best way to add a little more juice to your Sundays. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. Mike DiStefano, Dave Morassutti with you here on the podcast. And Ben Danford actually making the news. Little headline news for Ben Danford. He ends up getting invited to the Rookie Showcase, which he used to attend. It used to be here in Toronto. It's no longer here anymore. And I know you're pretty bummed about that.
I've always been bummed about that, yeah.
Yeah, but Ben Danford gets an opportunity to go to the Rookie Showcase. I guess that goes to show that the league believes Ben Danford is an NHL player and a future piece of this Leafs blue line at some point. So let's do this: cosign, no sign. Ben Danford will be a staple on this Leafs blue line within the next 2 years.
2 years,
so not this year necessarily, but for sure by next year he'll put himself on the Maple Leafs roster.
I'm gonna no sign it for now because I feel like he's just like I think he's just starting to show what he can do. Like, this past year was a good year. He was named the top defenseman in the OHL. I think top defensive defenseman, just so I can clarify that in the OHL. I think just because of his age, I think they probably want to see him take a more natural development when he comes to especially defensemen. They take a lot longer to develop. I think you probably want to see him play in the AHL for a little bit if he needs a little bit of seasoning. But I do expect him at some point to play a pretty big role.
Yeah, I think when you look at the Leafs roster too, there's just not a lot of space for him. Like they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They have all 6 of their current defensemen locked in this year and next year. So someone's going to have to move around, or maybe someone gets pushed out potentially. Now they do not have an abundance of right shot defensemen. I will say that. Could they possibly use a Ben Danford on their third pair and move out a guy like Simon Benoit? It's possible that Benoit could, lose out the job to Ben Danford if he comes and impresses in camp. I think he'll be given an opportunity to. Maybe he doesn't do it this year, but I think there's a shot next season we could see Ben Danford in a regular role. We'll see how things play out between now and then. There's obviously, tons of work that could be done to this blue line. But yeah, I think it's very possible that by next season, at the very least, Danford could be a fixture in the Maple Leafs blue line. It's weird when you take a guy in the first round and you're thinking, we won't see him for 3 years. You hope you'd see him a little bit quicker than that. But to your point, it's a slower development for defensemen and defensive defensemen at that. So perhaps it may take a couple of years, but that doesn't mean that he's not going to be a good player, that he's a bust. Just takes defensemen longer to develop than it does forwards like Cowan or like Matthew Knies. Do have to keep that in mind. All right, cosign no sign for you, Dave.
So my cosign no sign, we see Easton Cowan get a prominent role during training camp.
Oh, cosign. Absolutely cosign. I think they have to give him an opportunity to see what he can do. Like, he's their top prospect, and I think that he's earned a chance to showcase himself to the team and to the coaching staff that he worked on what they had asked him to work on last year in London, right? Like that Craig Berube wanted to work on his off puck skills and wanted to work on his puck protection. The couple games that I watched at the London Knights, like his puck protection definitely was impressive. Now, that was against OHLers, not NHLers, so there's definitely a difference. So we'll see what it looks like, when games start in preseason. I'm sure he'll get a long look, but I do think for sure that they would love for Easton Cowan to be NHL ready, to be able to take on a role, because there still is a hole in the top six. I think we can all agree that there is a hole. If he could fill it, if he could prove that he could fill it, not just be given the spot, but actually take the spot, I think that'd be fantastic. And I do believe that he'll get every opportunity in the world to compete for that spot. Because, I mean, outside, I think there's 5 spoken for spots in the top 6 right now, like completely spoken for. Matthews, Knies, Nylander, Tavares, and probably Michelli are the 5 guys in the top 6 that are spoken for. That leaves guys like Nick Robertson, Max Domi, and probably Easton Cowan as that third guy who can make a run at that other top 6 spot. And there's even, some reports out there that they could still be interested in Jack Roslovic. But until that happens, I think that Easton Cowan certainly will get a big, long look in camp as a potential piece of this puzzle for this upcoming season.
Yeah, I just think that people say they need to add a top 6 winger. They really need to add some skill to that top 6. Maybe they feel like Easton Cowan can push for it. Now they could go and still sign Jack Roslovic, and Roslovic can be, but like we had this conversation before. It's like then you're adding another Max Domi type player to the list. You've already got Max Domi to kind of do that. Now Roslovic is a right shot, and maybe that's something that they view as something that they need. But I've been adamant in saying you have to start seeing your younger players, push this group forward, right? We're constantly talking about how they need to add this, add that, go and trade for this, try to sign that. Once in a while, you need to also say, well, you've also got this player that you put in a lot of time in drafting and developing to actually, take a big step forward for you. And so I do think that that's where a player like Easton Cowan needs to step up in that, and show that he can do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me be clear. I'm not saying I think Cowan will make the team or is a lock to be a top 6 player for the Leafs, but I do think that he'll be given an opportunity to prove himself at the very least in training camp. All right, cosign, no sign, Dave. Matthew Knies will score at least 75 points this season.
Sorry, say that one more time just so I make sure you heard it properly.
Matthew Knies will score at least 75 points this season. 75 or more points for Matthew Knies.
75 or more.
Yeah, he had 58 a year ago.
I think I co-sign that.
Yeah? That big of a jump, 58 to 75?
Well, you're trying to think about, I think he gets on the power play in some way, shape, or form. Like, you got Matthews, Nylander, Tavares as kind of your top 3 forwards. I think they might go 5 forwards again if they don't feel they have a defenseman to go on the. I think he'll be the net front guy on the power play.
I think for sure he will be.
Yeah.
I think there's no question that he's going to be on PP1. He was very effective, being a net front guy, whether it was tipping pucks or it was pouncing on rebounds. Matthew Knies certainly proved that he could be an effective player on this power play. He'll be there
Yeah.
regardless of if it's 5 forwards or 4 forwards. He's definitely one of the top 4 and will be there. I think that he gets there. I'm expecting a big third year bump out
I
of
do.
Matthew Knies, because not only will he be on the top power play, but now he's on the top line all season, right? Like last year, I think he started on like the third line and then made his way up to the second line and then the first line, and they dropped him around. He moved around a little bit. It took him a while to kind of get his footing,
Yeah.
but right from the get go, I mean, he's going to have all the confidence in the world. It's him and Auston, right? It's the desert
Yeah.
line, and they want to get going right from day one. And I personally believe that Matthew Knies, he got the contract. He's going to be paid and put in positions to succeed. And I think this is going to be a big year. He really breaks out this year. 35, maybe 40 goals could be in the mix here. Could be in the cards for Matthew Knies. But I think a 75-point season is definitely doable for him. Yeah.
I do, and we talk. People keep saying, "Oh, how's Auston Matthews going to play better without Mitch Marner?" Playing with Matthew Knies, a guy that's going to. They've got the chemistry. They know how they both work together, and I do think that with the contract signed, yes, there's higher expectations for Matthew Knies, but I don't think there's ever been a concern that he can't handle it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where I think I really like what that potential that he can have. And 75 points, that might seem like a lot, but for a top line player of Matthew Knies' caliber, shouldn't that's I think what should be the expectation is the 70 to 75 point mark area for him.
Yeah, I completely agree. All right, next one for you.
Next one for me. If Connor McDavid doesn't sign an extension before the start of the season, Edmonton Oilers fans should be worried.
Oh, cosign, absolutely cosign. And Ryan Rishaug of TSN talked about his contract situation as of late, and he tweeted this. After taking some time to regroup after the season, McDavid and agent Judd Moldaver of Wasserman are working through what the options are and what the ask will look like. No firm timeline on this, and expect dialogue to continue. But so far, there hasn't been a back and forth with dollars and term to this point between the two sides. What the hell you been doing all summer? If you're Edmonton, if you're Stan Bowman, how the heck do you get to August 27th and you don't have any, conversations about term or dollar with Connor McDavid? Now, I understand it's kind of just going to be a blank check, sign here type of thing, but still, like you got to find out if this guy is committed to you long term or not, right? Like I'm shocked that this is the case. So yeah, I mean, the fact that there hasn't been any meaningful conversations with details of a contract leads me to believe that they're not particularly close to signing any type of contract here. Now, I don't think it'll be an overly difficult decision for Edmonton to pay Connor McDavid whatever the hell he wants, but it's still bizarre to me that we've gotten to this point and they haven't even talked figures. And I mean, you're getting to a point now where, maybe Connor McDavid gets to training camp and gets into the season and decides maybe I'll play it out, see what it looks like over the course of the year before I commit myself to Edmonton. If things don't go well, I guess I can hit the free agency and check out what else is out there for me. So every day gets closer to him becoming a free agent in Edmonton. So yeah, I'd be very worried if he gets to training camp and there's no extension announced. Now, there could very well be an extension announcement on the opening day of camp.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of tucked away and they haven't figured it out. But if we get to day 2 and there's no contract, or day 3 and there's no contract, every day after that there's no announcement, I'd be very worried if I am an Edmonton Oilers fan.
Yeah, it's just been everything that he said at the end of the year too. Like he was very non-committal when and I don't blame him per se. Like I kind of like it. I kind of like the idea that one of the top players is even a possibility, right, to enter free agency. We haven't had that really, we look at this past year's free agency, who was the top free agent, right? Who was the top target? Wasn't it? I'm trying to think like who was the big deal that was signed, and there isn't that marquee name that has gone to free agency.
Ehlers was really the one guy this year that turned out to be like, it was supposed to be star-studded, and then Marner gets the sign and trade, and the Florida guys all re-sign, and Rantanen ends up getting re-signed in Dallas. So yeah, not many guys make it to market.
No.
And next year there's a lot of big time free agents who are available as of now, including McDavid, including Kaprizov, including Jack Eichel. But will they actually make it there? Usually they don't. Usually it gets worked out. Either
and like that, like I know,
or they sign.
Some players like McDavid sometimes are just comfortable with what they know, and if they've established roots like he has in Edmonton, I can understand that. But I think there's also that little inkling of, he's done almost everything he can to put that team over the top, and it hasn't been enough, right? Yeah, I get it. They've been to the Cup final twice, and they've been close each time.
It made it to Game 7 of a Cup final. It's pretty good,
right? But sometimes it's just like, how much more can I really do before I have to think about maybe it's not me?
Well, I don't think it's him.
No,
I mean,
but I'm thinking of like how he's thinking of it, right? Like it just gets to the point. It's like, oh, maybe I just have to, find a better situation for myself to go and try to compete.
You might want to find another goaltender. Like let's try getting a decent goalie in the carts there in the mix. Like I'm shocked that they're going back at it with Stuart Skinner again this year. That wouldn't surprise me, especially after Stan Bowman quite literally came out and threw the goalies under the bus for the reason why they didn't close this year in the Cup final. Sounded like he was going to make a goaltending upgrade based on those words. Didn't do it. Did not do it. And now he's got to go back and use the same two guys as their goaltender. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, as of now, no contract and no discussion of term or dollars either to this point. I would be worried if I were Edmonton Oilers fans. Absolutely. All right, Dave, good stuff. Fun chat. That'll do it for us here today on the podcast. I'd like to thank you all for listening and supporting the show. You can subscribe to the Locked On Leafs podcast on all platforms and receive daily Leafs content. Follow myself on Twitter at Mickey_Canuck. Follow Dave at D_Morassutti and follow the show as well at Locked On Leafs. We'll be back with another episode for you guys on Friday. But until then, keep it locked right here on Locked On Leafs.